What's going on, everybody? Thanks for taking a couple minutes to check out my channel. I'm just doing a quick update on my garage. I finally got some siding put on. I'll take you around here, show you what I did, and maybe give a couple of tips and some information on how to install vinyl siding. Okay, installing vinyl siding, as far as difficulty and skill level and physical difficulty, it's probably about a 3 or 4 out of a 10, I guess. It's easy to do, but it's probably an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for ease of screwing it up. And I'll show you some places where it can be screwed up. This is the first time I've ever put on the vertical siding. And as far as a one-man operation, it was really easy. You put a piece on, you can just come along with a ladder. Even up the tall gables, you can just have a ladder up there and just work your way across. It's really easy. It's a lot easier as far as that goes as a one-man operation. Any piece I grab here should have movement to it. All of these coming down along here. If you install your siding and it doesn't have movement, there's a problem. And I'll show you what some of the things to look out for. The vertical siding only has 10-foot length, so you got to put a break in it somehow. You could probably bend some type of a Z flashing or something. I just put a double layer of J channel. One place that you got to really watch out when you do this, make sure the battens line up, because if that was shifted over a little bit, that's something that would stick out like a sore thumb. I even used a J channel at the bottom, and I'm going to show you something that I did. I didn't want the full weight of the siding coming down on the J channel. Every individual piece doesn't weigh that much, but if you have a whole square of siding coming down on this J channel, could bend it. I'm sure they make some fancy thing for the bottom, but I just did this and drilled a drainage hole behind every batten almost, so the water will drain out of that J channel. Come around the back side here. I'll show snapping in these last couple pieces. If you've never installed vinyl siding, if you've ever seen vinyl siding, it's not hard to spot it where it's all buckled up and twisted and warped. It's probably not just nailed simply in the correct places. These have a slot in them for a reason. This stuff expands and contracts and moves. You got to let it move. Even the corner post, my corner post moves. It would come down farther, but I have one nail right at the top of this slot so that it doesn't slide down. All the expansion and contraction can take place below there, and it still free floats. This piece of siding right here, I have a nail at the top of this slot as well. It'll still go up. Still moves up, but it doesn't come down the whole way, and that's what I have. All the pieces of siding are actually resting on their own separate nail instead of resting on top of that J channel. It would probably slowly warp that down. Okay, so for the purpose of the demonstration, I'm just going to use some drywall screws and run through this quickly where you might want to nail, or in my case screw sometimes. Most of the time they just go in dead center of the slots. You leave them away from the wall a little bit. You don't nail them in tight. If your piece can't slide, you nailed something too tight, or you have it not dead center of the slot. Now my J channels here, left and right, they could be anything. They could be an outside corner, inside corner, or in my case, the actual top of the wall and the bottom of the wall. Sometimes when you're doing vinyl siding, vinyl soffit, you may want to anchor one so that the piece can't slide in a certain direction. Like for mine, like if this was the bottom of my siding, like I showed, I don't want all the weight of the siding resting down against it. I got plenty of movement here. So what I can do is I can slide the siding completely to the left or the right, or up or down. I can put a small mark right on the siding and right onto the side of the wall. And then I can shift it left or right or up or down and put another mark on the wall. I got about a 1/2 inch space here. Now I can slide that mark dead center here. And this is what I was doing on my walls. And then I can put one anchor at the top of this slot. That'll keep my piece from sliding down now. It'll still go up a little bit, and I showed that on my wall. It'll still go up some, but it'll still have a 1/4 of an inch growth on the bottom side, or the left or the right. If you were doing, say, a long piece of siding between two pieces of J channel, or a long piece of soffit, say 12 foot long, and you had all this movement, you could actually pin this left and right here. What that'll do is it'll keep the soffit or siding or whatever from slowly working out of one end here if it shrinks a lot. One end might be a little bit tighter than the other, and all the shrinking might occur here and pull it actually out of your channel or something. So there are times where you can pin it, it won't move, but it'll still have expansion and contraction. So if I pull these out, the piece will still slide, everything's good to go. When you put in your next piece, sometimes when they're nice and long, you can actually slide one end in and flex it. Sometimes if you can't get it, and you're working with short pieces, sometimes you have to slide it in from the top or the bottom, and you have to force it up over your latch, and you always want to make sure that thing is latched. Put it in, slide it left and right. So if this is like a horizontal piece of siding, and there was another piece of siding where this was overlapping over here, you could give yourself a 1/4 of an inch of room over here for some expansion. And you can throw one nail to the far right of this slot. If it was on the other end, you could throw it to the far left. That'll keep that piece of siding from working out of here, and then all your successive nails will go right in the dead center. That'll still let all the expansion and contraction, and it'll keep that from sliding out here. I still got room for it to move that way a little bit, but it can't work its way completely out of here. If you've ever seen some siding where it's coming out of the J channel, something like that would have stopped it. Okay, so if you noticed on my corner post where I was showing the nail flange of my corner post, I'm not sure if I pointed it out or not, but there was a chalk line going up along here. The way you find that chalk line to keep these nice and square, this will help keep it at a nice 90-degree angle on the outside and keep everything running nice and straight. If you hold one framing square on the outside, now you could even, instead of a framing square out here, you could tuck it into a corner of a wall or something. But then if you set another framing square on the inside, like this black framing square would be the actual corner of my building. And if you turn that left and right until the measurements equal up on the outside of the nail flanges here, you can see where to snap those lines. It keeps everything nice and square and nice and lined up. Mine turned out to be 3 3/4 for these posts. What you don't want is you don't want the thing pinched in like, this is an exaggeration, but hard like this, and you don't want it splayed out like that either. You want it to be a nice true 90, as true as possible of a 90-degree angle, and that's about the best way that I know how to do that. And that most of this stuff was shown to me by my brother. Give him the credit for most of this stuff. So. All right, hopefully a couple of these tips might help you out if you ever try to put on some vinyl siding. Inside this final piece here, I'm going to show you how to put this piece in. And this would work the same if you were doing horizontal siding when you got to the top. This is under seal under here. This is literally all the tools that you need. Actually, you don't even need all of these tools. It's nice to have a chalk line, a pair of snips. I actually have a jig I made to cut this with, but I didn't feel like listening to that generator run. So I just took my time, used a pair of snips, pencil, utility knife. This is under seal that I just showed you. It was inside that J channel. And I'll show you how that works. Tape measure. For here, I just have 1.5 inch aluminum nails, siding nails. Let's see, this is about the only specialty tool, and you can even get away without not having this. This is a crimper. I'm going to show you how that works. Hammer and a hacksaw. It's fairly warm out right now, so when you do some of this crimping and stuff, it's not as worrisome that you're going to crack something. If you're doing this and it's really cold outside, below 0 or something, this stuff can crack and it just becomes very brittle. Basically, this thing puts a little crimp there, a little flange sticking out. So when it snaps into this undersill, it can't pull out of there. If I'm going to put a few of these crimps along here. Like I said, you wouldn't even need this. This tool is not necessary. You could take a screwdriver and punch this as long as you're careful with it. That piece is all crimped up. We'll go snap these in place. This is one place where it can be difficult to nail and not fasten things down tight, is when you have undersill going inside a J-channel. And for some strange reason, the holes don't always line up. Even if you try to cut it to match them, they'll work their way off. The decent thing is this doesn't have a lot of mass and bulk to it like a corner post does. Corner post and full pieces of siding have a lot of mass and they grow a lot. And they're really noticeable if they start to buckle and warp. I didn't do a trial run on this, so if this doesn't fit, that'll be my luck. Sometimes you got to work your way up the piece. You can hear it latching in there. It's all snapped in. Got movement to grow and move and shift. Can't come out. Good to go. Now I have to put undersill here as well. Unfortunately, my undersill, the nail holes are on the other side of the corner post. So I can nail this nice and loose, let this float, and the corner post will still have its movement that it needs. I'm gonna tack this in, snap that piece of siding in here, and that'll be a wrap. My siding will be done. Thanks for tuning in and checking out my channel. Bow season and trapping season is right around the corner, and I'm ready to focus on that. Have a good one, everybody.